this is going to be an interactive webinar, and we're looking forward to hearing from some of you. But we're going to start off by hearing from 3 EBMUD super savers. We'll be hearing from Amitava Mukherjee, who is a home gardener, Kelly Beardsley, our graywater enthusiast, and Marilee Moringa, an HOA community builder. They're going to be sharing their personal stories about water conservation, and then we'll pause for Q&As where you can ask them more about their experiences with gardening, graywater, and then working in an HOA. And then we are going to open it up to hearing from our audience. We're hoping you'll be open to sharing some stories, tips, and tricks. We're excited to hear from all of you. And then we'll wrap it up with information about EBMUD's rebates and resources. So we'll pause for Q&A after our super savers, but if questions come up throughout it, you can go ahead and add those to the Q&A box. And we are recording the first part of this webinar when we're hearing the stories from our super savers, but then we'll pause the recording, and for the sharing of stories, it'll be more informal and we're not going to be recording that part. But we will be sending out the recording afterwards, along with links to some of the rebates and resources mentioned throughout today's presentation. Okay, so we are going to kick it off by hearing from our first super saver, Amitava Mukherjee, who converted their lawn at their home in Danville to a water-wise garden. And Amitava and I met because he had attended some of our more in-depth water-wise gardening webinars. We have a whole series of webinars on things like sheet mulching and designing for biodiversity. And Amitava had joined and asked some really great questions. So when we were putting together this webinar, he came to mind as somebody who had a really great short story to tell. So I'm going to invite Amitava to take on over. And we're going to start off by asking you some questions. So Amitava, if you could just start by telling us a little bit about your project and then what inspired you to make the change.
Well, hello, everyone. And Jolene and Kristen, thank you very much for inviting me. I don't have too much time, so I'll go through the points briefly and we can answer questions later. What inspired me right away to convert the lawn was during the pandemic in 2021, the lawn was not looking very good at all. You see a picture right there, and I was adding on additional water, sprinkler, fertilizer, amendments, and nothing really helped. I was just throwing money down the drain. So the evidence was quite clear. The water bill was pretty high because I was using more and more water to try and improve the lawn appearance. So it seems to me that I needed to find another solution. And at that same time, we had a severe drought throughout the country, and certainly in California. And there was a government mandate to reduce water usage. And I'm using more water at a time they're asking me to use less water. So clearly, I had to do something different. And I think the utilities were required to enforce the mandate. So what I did was I looked at EBMUD's website, and I found very valuable suggestions and resources, especially sheet mulching with cardboard. And in addition to the resources and the recommendations, a very big incentive was the attractive rebate program for converting lawns to drought-resistant yards, which they called Water-Wise Garden. So I considered this project like an investment in my property. And real realtors, people that I know, that at this time and at this age of being aware about our environment and the need to conserve water and power, actually the fact that you've converted your lawn improves the property value. So those were the reasons why I thought I should take this project seriously and go about converting the lawn. You can go to the next slide. Do you want to discuss this, Jolene?
Oh, yeah. So this is a snapshot of Amitava's water use taken from the home water report. So all homeowners who have a water meter have access to that home water report online platform where you can view your current usage and your historic usage. It also provides customized recommendations based on where we think you would benefit from saving the most water. And so this shows in 2020, due to that large lawn that was on a sprinkler system, Amitabha, his home was averaging, using over 60,000 gallons annually in 2020. And you can see that went down a little bit, but we'll share at the end the results from the lawn conversion project. Amitabha, did you have more you wanted to say?
No, we can go to the, all I wanted to show is that exactly I was using a lot of water, but I was not improving the appearance of the lawn.
Yeah, okay, so how did you do it? What was your lawn conversion process?
Okay, if you go to the next slide. Okay, so now you see on the left-hand side, that's what the lawn looked like. And clearly that was not acceptable. But before I started the project, I had a conceptual idea of what I wanted the final result to look like. And very kind gentleman, Kevin Healy, he helped me design this pathway I'm talking about. I still had to go from the front to the rear of the new yard, and I don't want to walk over the new yard. Therefore, I needed a pathway. And so first thing we did was mark out the pathway and this give us an opportunity to be a little creative and artistic. And you'll see the result of this fairly nice curved pathway later on. We marked that, and on the right-hand side, you see we've used 3/4 inch gravel, and the pathway is about 18 inches wide, and it's in a S-shaped curve, which adds to the appearance of the lawn, of the yard. And the first thing was to apply layers of cardboard. That's what you see here on the right-hand side, right on the grass. No need to take the lawn out. Go to the next slide. And the next step, according to the EBMUD's videos and seminars that they had, next on the left-hand side, that's where you see the curved pathway with the ginger gravel, and the black appearance on both sides is the 1-inch compost layer, which was recommended by EBMUD. On the right-hand side, you see the drip irrigation grid, and this on the left-hand side is the sunny side. On the right-hand side of the pathway is the shady side. And so I worked with the irrigation specialist to create zones. This was zone 2, zone 3. I had existing zones on the ivy on the far right, and in the front, there were existing zones. Plus, there were 2 zones outside the gate, which is at the far end. So we created 6 zones, all of which were controlled by their valves, and all of those were connected to the Hunter controller in the garage, which is weather actuated. So I don't have to fiddle with it. Depending upon rain or shine, the controller decides how much extra water is required or to reduce the water usage. This was a big help. Otherwise, I had to do it all by hand. And this is the drip irrigation system. Next slide. Okay, so the next layer is the 3-inch mulch layer. This is bark, medium fir bark of 3 inches of it on top of the compost. Now you see the appearance of what used to be the lawn. Now this is what the new yard looks like, which to me is a big improvement. And I had marked out with flags different areas where I would want to plant succulent plants, most of which I researched and got from the Ruth Bancroft garden in Walnut Creek. And that's what you see on the right-hand side is a flourishing agave plant right near the deck, which is they require less water and they really look good. My idea of cacti has changed completely. I thought they were ugly and thorny, and you'd be surprised once you go to the Ruth Bancroft garden what cactus plants can do for you. Go to the next slide. And so now you see before conversion on the left-hand side, that was the lawn, water guzzling lawn, what that looked like. And here is the after the conversion. And I haven't over here, I've got a few more golden barrels, and I've got some more ice plant on the left-hand side. It takes time for the succulents to grow. But this is what the lawn, the yard, water-wise yard looks like. And if you go to the next slide.
Oh yeah, so now we're going to do the reveal of what were the results on your water use.
Okay, so the results were great. First of all, that you see here in this graph, look at the water usage in 2020, about 60,000 gallons annually, now projected to less than half in 2024. So the lawn is gone. We have a drought-resistant yard, and it's cut the annual water use to less than half. And I see it in my bill. Thanks to the rebate program from EBMUD, after, say, I finished this in about fall of 2021. So it's getting to be 3 years now. After 3 years of this kind of yard, I still have about $800 credit in my bill, which will probably last me another 2 years. So I want to once mention also that it generated a keen interest in gardening and learning about horticulture. So I visited all botanical gardens in the Bay Area several times, and even visited the Keukenhof Tulip Festival outside Amsterdam in April this year. And I'm waiting to receive 40 tulip bulbs coming from Keukenhof, which I'm going to plant later on this year, according to their instructions. So next time we have a webinar, I hope to show you a lot of color, beautiful tulips. Okay, next we can go to the next slide.
Great, thank you so much, Amitabha. And I love those pictures of the process. You really show sheet mulching and also what's called hydrozoning, which is where you set up a different irrigation schedule based on if your plant is low water need, moderate water needs, or in the sun or the shade. I think you demonstrated that really well. So do you have any closing advice here for someone thinking about converting their lawn?
Yes, I'd like to say, think about it, but bite the bullet, get started. Once you start the project, it'll unfold with a little bit of interest on your behalf. You should have a conceptual idea, a design of what you want the new yard to look like, and review and learn from the EBMUD considerable resources on the web. Use their rebate program, and they have coupons for all the different materials that you need to purchase from the local vendors. And my recommendation is take genuine interest and you act like a project manager and be involved in the conversion. And finally, of course, it's a very worthy goal, environmentally speaking, conservation of water and energy, and every homeowner has their part to play. And I wish you all good luck. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. That was a really great story, and we'll save those Q&As for the end once we hear from all of our super savers.
That was amazing, Amitabha. That was such an inspirational story. And now we're going to move on to graywater. But right now I'd like to introduce our super saver, Kelly Birdsley. And he came to us from a friend who he inspired to put in a graywater system. And she recommended him for this conversation today. And Kelly also received a rebate from us for our graywater, with our graywater rebate. Kelly, can you tell us what got you started with using graywater?
Well, I grew up in Los Angeles, and when I was a kid in the 70s, my dad too tried to keep the lawn green all the time, and he grew up in the Midwest, and he was constantly watering the lawn. And then he would freak out on us if we took a really long shower because he wanted to save all the water for the lawn, and it just never got super green. And in 2011, I moved to Oakland from San Francisco into a house, and I actually converted my lawn as well. And I used your guys' rebate program. I have a very tiny lawn, But I put all the mulch down, and I had this, if you look on this slide here on the right, I have a lemon tree growing there. That's where my washer and dryer is like right inside a door. There used to be a redwood tree there. And in 2020, there was a storm and it broke because it was half dead and fell behind the fence here. Thank God it didn't hit a house or anything. And, you know, after the tree was removed, there was just an empty spot there. And I was like, you know, that tree, redwoods, they really do need about 100 gallons a day to water them. And so I kind of felt guilty, and I was like, maybe I should have figured out how to water this thing. And so I planted that lemon tree, and I figured out, I read this book from this woman, Laura Allen. I brought the book, and she was part of this Graywater Action League in Oakland. I just did some Googling, and she explains the whole process in this book, how you can use your laundry water to go out, the gray water to go out and water your garden. So I was like, okay. And so I dug a basin around that lemon tree. I put the basin in there first, then I planted a lemon tree. And I tapped in the old irrigation system that used to be there for there used to be sprinklers all over. And I took all those out and put little T's in to put a 1/2-inch pipe to go water everything. And then they also water all the ceanothus in the back. And that's basically, I adapted to our environment, like with the droughts and everything. And I was like, I just felt guilty every time I was turning on the hose. I felt like a big jerk, especially when the fire started. I just felt like a creep, you know, out there like watering everything with the hose all the time. And that's how I got inspired.
Oh, excellent. Thank you for that. Can you just talk through a little bit of the components of a graywater system?
Yeah, I mean, basically, you guys give the rebates. There's a little, here, wait. I'm going to hold up this picture in my book. This is all the components, and that's basically what's right above the washing machine.
Uh-huh.
And
so you have an air vent?
Yes, exactly. You got an air vent. You've got that 3-way, what is it called? The valve there. And that's what you guys give a rebate for.
Mm-hmm.
And then one way goes to the sewer, and then you can turn it, and then the other way can go out to your garden.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically, as long as you use soap that doesn't have any sodium or salt in it, I have a picture of the soap that I use, but you can use that soap I was looking at the ones from Costco. It's like eco soap. And I was like, oh, this is totally doable. You could actually use this soap too. I just buy mine from Berkeley Wool.
Yep.
And basically it comes out here just like that. And it goes, and all these little arrows go to little basins right there. And that's basically where it waters everything. So this will water that tree. Let's just say that's a lime tree. I don't know what that is. And this one is like a lemon tree over here. And then over here is just some random like plants or like bushes or something. And then over there, and that's an actual lemon tree or orange tree in the back there. And it goes pretty far. Those people think those pumps on the washing machine aren't strong, but they can go back about 60 to 100 feet.
Very good. And we can take a look at some of your components here.
Yes.
So this is your soap.
Yes.
Air vent and your 3-way diverter.
Yep. And then I have and that's in the back where the ceanothus is. And then this one, the one on the far right here, that goes to the lemon tree. And what I did is it goes 18 inches into the ground. So, and I have another one on the other side that looks just like the one in the middle on the other side of the basin.
Very good.
Mulch basin.
So what would you tell someone who's interested in a laundry to landscape system? Like, would you say, is it a lot of maintenance? Is it easy? Are you satisfied using it?
Oh yeah, I love it because it just happens every day, you know, not every day, but whenever I do laundry, I know everything's getting watered. I mean, the only maintenance I do is I go and I pull up those valve covers to make sure like the rats didn't chew through any of the hoses or anything. So I'll be running the laundry about once a month, and I'll walk out there and start pulling off the valve covers, and I'm like, oh, water's still coming out. So it looks like it's all doing good. I haven't had to replace anything. And I put mine in during the pandemic too, early on, probably 2021 ish is when I installed mine. But I mean, you can find people that can do it for you. I did it during the pandemic. It was, I'm a little handy. So I was able to just like set that up in just a couple hours.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing. Thank you
All
so much. Oh,
All
yeah.
the pipe was already laid. Like I said, I tapped into the old irrigation. So I
Mhm.
didn't have to dig ditches and get all the piping to go to the back of the yard. It was all already there.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your story, Kelly. And it's interesting what Kelly's saying about, like, yeah, he's super satisfied with his system. You know, is similar to what we found from other rebate customers, both in Marin and EBMUD. When we sent out a customer survey, they also responded that they were very satisfied with their system, that their level of use was year-round and almost once a week, as some of their systems were at least 3 years old, and that there was minimum maintenance or kind of what they expected. And we're pretty lucky here in California for the plumbing code. You can do a gray water system, laundry to landscape, without a permit. It's when you go into your bathroom and maybe change plumbing fixtures and stuff, and if you want to use your gray water from your bathroom, it does require a permit. And also kitchen water in California is considered gray water. But if you have the right kind of situation, you can set up a gray water system quite easily with your laundry to landscape, and water your shrubs and your fruit trees. And as we saw with Kelly, it was under mulch. You want to put the emitters under 2 inches of mulch. Well, thank you so much for that. I think we might have some questions for you later, Kelly. And now we are moving on to Marilee Moringa. And Marilee is actually fairly new to the Watergate community, though her community requested that she take part in the landscape committee at Watergate. She's been active in her community, kind of building up her community around landscape there. Marilee, would you like to tell us a little bit about the Watergate HOA?
Sure, I'd love to. Would you bring up my first slide? Good evening, everyone. I'm been a resident owner in the Watergate condominium complex that's located out on the Emeryville Peninsula, moving in late of 2021. I'm kind of a newcomer. What I'm going to try and share with you this evening is some of the things that we've done as a multi-unit dwelling area that makes us or works us towards becoming a water-aware community. For those of you who don't know about Watergate, I wanted to start with a little bit of history about who and how the buildings got there. The complex was built in the mid-1970s on an area of about 24 acres, and it was heavily landscaped at the time that it was constructed. There are 6 buildings in total, yielding 1,249 units, and there are roughly 2,700 people who live in the complex completely. The units were built on a new landfill at the time, meaning that there was very little time between when it was dumped and for it to settle. And so what we've seen is about 50 years of kind of continually shifting and settling, which has done a little modification now and then to our irrigation infrastructure altogether. We have a very diverse population that lives here at Watergate. We have owners who have been here since 1979 and have never been interested in going anywhere else. We have owners that just moved in last week. We have owners who live as far away as Greece, and they rent their units out. So we have a heavy mix, sometimes about 40-60 between tenants and resident owners who live here. And those folks have a very different perspective about how they want to see our landscape used. We also have a wide range of age groups in the property. We have older residents who want to walk down paths and look at pretty flowers, and we have parents who want a place for their children to run. We have 4 swimming pools, and we have 3 water features, and those are beloved by many people here and seen as an egregious waste of water by other folks. However, the biggest challenge to our water management is that our buildings only have bulk water meters on them. Each building is metered individually, but we do not have any metering on our individual units. And what that means is that it's impossible to assign accountability to an individual unit. And the only way that you can make changes in water usage and changes to adjust how you perceive what water needs are there is to get the community to work together. And so that's some of the things that I'd like to talk about this evening. Next slide.
How do you inspire your community members to work together on water conservation?
Well,
It's a big job.
thanks for asking that, Kristen. I joined the Waterscape Landscaping Committee. I was asked to join within a couple of months of being here, and I think it was because I was standing around admiring some native plants, and that was enough to get me on the committee. So much of the work I'm talking about this evening happened before I arrived. Some of it has happened since. But I think that everybody would agree that change starts with a community, for a community, with becoming aware of what the problem is. Or what some of the concerns are. So back in 2015, in response to the drought mandates that were present at that time, management put together a water usage chart. And what they did was divide it up by the buildings, the individual buildings, and they calculated a number that's approximated each unit's average use. Again, this is all bulk metering, so it's all calculated. And the intent was a friendly competition during the drought to basically say, hey, maybe our building as a whole could use less water than their building. And that worked pretty well, just in terms of heads up for folks. In 2018, the use of the chart had kind of died out, and so it was restarted, but this time it was refined a little bit. We added totals, fairly totals were added across all units, and the context of the chart changed a little bit to focus more on the financial impact that was occurring by excessive water use. Water is our HOA's single largest utility expense, and it is a big number for us. And so what we have now is a chart that basically emphasizes, hey, folks, with verbiage around it that says, hey, folks, if we can control our water usage, maybe we can also control our HOA fees. I will say the chart has given a lot of visibility to monthly water use. And overall, if we were to go back to 2015, we would see that the trend has been less water used. And we're currently, the numbers, although this last year hasn't been very good about that, but the numbers are trending down. And we do, because this is a per capita use, and we assume that there are 2.2 people in every unit, but we're well within the state's recommendations on per capita water use. Once this chart was put into place, residents began making their own requests, and one was improving the visibility of actual unit usage. So there are some projects that are outside of my scope that are looking at that. But we have owners and residents recommending we switch to high efficiency water or high efficiency washers as our older washers die out. So we have been doing that. And we've had residents suggest that we start doing toilet leak tests on some of our older infrastructure. And so our management office has leak tests available for you. You get a non-permanent dye tablet, you drop it in your tank, you look to see if you see color in the bowl, and you've identified a leak that you can repair with things. We also had somebody who suggested that we lower the levels of the water in the swimming pools by a foot. That idea didn't go very far, but it did cause some conversation to happen. If you would go to next slide, please. One of the things that I think change requires is some kind of positive outcome, some demonstrable positive outcome. And it's easier to make people accept a big change when they've seen it's some kind of positive change from something happening. So we have a green belt that runs through our property. It's about 1.5 blocks long. It's between two buildings. It has a lot of trees. And when it was first put in, these kidney-shaped beds were very green lawn. And it was beautiful. But by 2017, after several years of drought, the beds had turned into basically bark dust. And there was a lot of pressure to put something pretty back in. And so the landscape committee said at that time, hey, let's put some drip irrigation in here and let's put in some water-wise or low water usage plants. There was some resistance to that, but the landscape committee prevailed because they just kept talking, and the chairman at that time was a very good educator. everybody was pleased at the outcome. So what you're looking at is a bed from 2018 and a picture of the bed in 2024, where we have quite a lovely garden. And we have 2 of those beds in the Greenbelt. So we took that positive outcome, and this is when I joined Watergate. We took that positive outcome and we started building on that success. And we talked to people about converting the other lawns on the property. People had seen how pretty this bed looked, and so we added another layer to the whole benefit package, which was, hey, this is a benefit to our pocketbook. Would you go to the next slide, please? So we picked a scruffy 1,300 square foot lawn in a courtyard, an inner courtyard of one of our buildings. And we used the EBMUD calculator, and we learned that that lawn used right around 46,000 gallons of water per year. Well, that's a good hunk of water you'd like to recover. And so this time we went through the lawn rebate program, much as Amitava described to you earlier. But the more important aspect of this for our HOA community is we contacted those 45 owners that lived in those apartments surrounding basically what was their front yard. And we told them what we wanted to do. And we asked for their input. And the responses were both overall positive and they were very, very personal. And I liked that part. Yes, we would like to see more flowers, just like the ones we're seeing down in the Greenbelt beds. My granddaughter loves butterflies. I'm a bird watcher. I can't wait to see more birds. It will overall enhance our environment when we go out into the courtyard. And my personal favorite, we don't like the sound of lawnmowers. And I thought that one was pretty good. So we did the lawn rebate program with EBMUD. We used the same set of steps that Amitava outlined in terms of mulch and bark dust and compost. But importantly, during the project months, we kept in touch with the owners of the units. We told them ahead of time what was going to happen. We told them if there were going to be any project variations, just so they could stay in touch with everything. We even invited them down while our in-house landscape staff was doing things in the courtyard. Please come out to see what's going on. We started this process in 2022. And if you would go to next slide, please. In June of 2023, we had a beautiful flower garden. I promise you it's the same building. We just also had a painting project going on at the same time that the garden was changing. This is the same garden. But what I want to bring your attention to in terms of water saving is our native plant, low water use garden now with the pathway in it, lots of pollinators, uses 8,700 gallons of water a year. So we had a $37,000 or 37,000 gallon savings that we were looking at. We have a total of 8 courtyards like this. They both have 2 lawns in them with 2 chunks at either end of the courtyard. And that is a lot of potential water usage reduction that we're taking a look at. People are very happy with this lawn, and it has generated a lot of conversation about when can this happen in our courtyard. That's a very positive outcome for a community to be asking about these same kinds of things happening. During the time that the work was taking place in this courtyard, we wanted to keep people engaged in our demonstration beds that we put in the Greenbelt. And if you'd go to the next slide, please. What we did was put up planting guides. This is a picture of the same bed I showed you earlier, just a few months after it had started growing the first spring. But the important part about this is we put up some plant guides. We made a card that had information about all the plants in it, and we put markers next to all the plants. So our residents can pluck out a card and start to walk through the garden, identifying the plants that are there, learning about them, learning about the pollinators that they bring to us. When we first put this stuff in, I would be down in the garden doing things, and I would watch the residents talk with one another about, oh, did you see what's blooming over there? And hey, come over here and look at this plant. Isn't this a pretty color? While they had the guide in their hand. And I thought, that's great. People are enthusiastic about it. So if I fast forward to 2024, what do I say to myself? Is the community still engaged? Well, last April, I learned how engaged they were because I took out the guides and the markers so that I could do some refurbishment on them. They were out for about 2 weeks. And during that time, I was approached by several residents who said to me, where are the plant guides? I had visitors. I wanted to take them on a garden tour. Another resident was, where are the plant guides? My kids are studying plant XYZ, and we wanted to come down and see what it looked like. So we're 2 years out from this 2 little tiny beds being planted, and the community is still engaged. And they still ask questions about the water use in the gardens, and they notice that the maintenance people have less time and that they have to be engaged in the water. So I think that those things indicate a lot of success with community engagement. And if you would go to my next slide, please. The fourth and final thing that I think change needs, or making a community accept water change, is that we need a community that's looking forward. You can't just look back at your successes, but you have to look forward to what's happening next. And what I see right now is, even though our landscape committee, we have a goodly long list of water projects that we want to engage in, but what we're beginning to see is our residents are asking us for these kinds of improvements. They point out to us where the lawn, they think the lawn needs to be replaced. They point out to us that where planting areas need to be augmented. They want to get in line for those kinds of changes, and they come up with some ideas about, now, could we save some water if we did this? One of the things I was very excited about was the board of directors asked if we would take a look at our lobby planting areas to see if we could put in things to spruce up the lobby a little bit, but also to use less irrigation in the lobby areas and improve those habitats. And so we're working with a landscape architect right now to design some of those things so we get it right, because we have some shade and some sunny and that sort of thing. But when I went out to the owners in the individual buildings and just casually surveyed them to say, how would you feel if your lobby garden changed? One of the most common things that I heard from them was, well, that'd be great. That'd be pretty. That would improve our property values if we needed to sell. We think that's a great idea. And our water use would be less. That tells me that they have been listening over the last 2 years. And I think all of this is very, very positive. And I say that we are a community that is becoming water aware. Thank you.
Wow, that is an amazing
Yeah.
story, Marilee, and I love all your details to that story. And real just, big picture, using a table to create this conversation and really awareness and questions. You know, what else can we do? And a little friendly competition, and then moving it outdoors by providing beautiful examples, and then other people seeing what it could look like to create a beautiful garden, something different than a lawn. And I also love how you talk about, you know, you don't just set it and forget it. You are continuing to engage with your community and asking them and listening to them and you know, developing your perspective of what's going on with your community by really using active listening with everyone around you.
Well, thank you.
Such a rich story. Thank you for sharing all of that. We'll have to listen to that a few times to get all of your wisdom.
Yeah, and we had some folks writing in on the chat, yay for beautiful native plants. Those pictures really were stunning. So we are going to take some time now for Q&A, and there were some that were submitted through the Q&A box that I'll read out loud, but also this is a chance where if you want to ask a live question, you can use that hand icon, raise your hand, and we'll call on you to unmute. So Marilee, since you were just on, a couple questions came in for you. One was, and you might have mentioned this, but how does the landscape watering get metered? So how are you measuring water use? Oh, and you are muted now, Marilee.
There you go.
My cat is being a brat, and I didn't think he needed to join the conversation. It is unfortunate for us that we have the bulk metering on the buildings. For irrigation water that is within the building itself, like our inner courtyards or our terraces, they're a three-sided planting area raised. Basically, it's a bunch of planter beds because we're 1 floor up from the ground. All of the water that's used for those is included in the building's total water use. We have no way to separate out what is used in our units, what's used in our laundry, and what's used for the within building irrigation requirements. And that's part of what was necessary. That's one of the reasons we've so emphasized replacing our inner courtyards to get our water usage down as low as we can. We do have irrigation. We have several irrigation meters for the rest of the grounds, what we would think of as truly the rest of the grounds. And those aren't fed into our what I would call our domestic water use. But anything that's in the building that gets irrigated or within the confines of the building is all on one bulk meter.
Okay, thank you.
We have a question about, do you face saltwater intrusion issues in your landscaping, being so close to the bay?
We have not yet seen any of that on any of the areas. There may be something seeping up for the groundwater just because of the instability of the landfill. That was a question that UC Berkeley's, one of their environmental science departments asked about 10 years ago now, and I don't know what they concluded. I think my strong feeling is that we have not yet seen a saltwater problem.
Okay, that's
In
good.
our
Okay,
grounds.
there was one more question submitted through the chat. This is for Amitabha, but it could actually apply to all of you, which is how do you address weeds? So I did notice Amitabha in your pictures, you know, they're very pristine, no weeds. Have any tricks or tips for folks? And then Marilee, if you want to chime in on that one too, or Kelly.
I'd pull them out. It's a labor of love. As I go, I just like when I'm out there, I just see them and I start pulling them up. It's like a weird, like OCD thing.
Yeah,
But
so just staying
there's
on
not
top
that
of
many.
pulling them.
There's not that many. When you got all the mulch and everything, I don't know how the others are, but it's very controllable if you keep up on it.
Yeah, the thick mulch layer will definitely help with that. Amitabha?
Yeah, actually, one of the main reasons to apply for paper is actually to keep the weeds out. The weeds can get through. That's one of the main reasons. And also, for the pathway, there was actually an impermeable membrane that you put down so that the weeds can grow through the gravel. But the main way to keep the weeds out is the cardboard or paper, and on top of that, the mulch.
Great. Yeah, the cardboard acts as that initial weed barrier. It's going to block out the sun, kind of suppress everything. But you have to make sure you have good full coverage, because if you have any gaps between the cardboard, that's where the weeds will start popping up.
That's why you need an overlap between the cardboard pieces. And I've had no problem with weeds at all in the last 3 years.
No, that's great to hear.